What's up, everybody? Welcome to Visionary Rhetoric, episode 34. I hope that you have enjoyed the last two episodes and all the episodes prior to that. But today we're going to talk about what it looks like to jump from responsibility, right? We always get caught up in the responsibility of that which I spoke of in episode 32 and 33. Please go back and listen to that. It'll bring all of this into context. But we want to talk about what it means to move from the conversation around responsibility and to move into material repair. Material repairs is another way to say reparations. And I know when I say reparations, some of you may want to tune out, but please lock in with me real quick. Maybe not real quick, but for this episode. And we will talk about what that looks like and why it's important. But first, we got to start, right? There's always a start and there's always a finish. First, we want to talk about what that repair looks like in a society that is built on exploitation, denial of that exploitation, and then just flat out amnesia, right? You got amnesia that's been passed down from generation to generation, and I'll get into it a little bit later, but we also talk about the fact that people always say that, hey, nobody alive today owns slaves and nobody alive today are slaves in America. And it's so disingenuous. I have to attribute it to either the apathy I spoke about last episode, or to amnesia, A or A. So I want to say some part, maybe half, apathetic. The other half has amnesia and forgets or just, is not cognizant of. And the important thing about what I want to talk about is that you have to be self-aware. You have to be aware of yourself. You have to be aware of your privilege. We all have privilege in some way, shape, or form. If you're a black man, you do have privilege as a man. If you are a white man, you have probably the utmost privilege in this nation that is now fighting, hear what I'm saying, fighting not to be erased. White folk are saying that they will not be erased and that this is their land. They'll take it back even in blood. Right? They're going to get it in blood is what they basically telling us. So we want to talk about what it means to go from that responsibility to true material repair. I want to provide receipts. I want to give some frameworks, and hopefully I can give hope. It's so important that hope comes out of all of this that I had to say it twice. But hopefully, right? So let's start. I told you we had to start. We kind of had to build up to my ultimate premise, which is that there has to be material repair as much as people feel like you shouldn't do it. I've even had black people argue with me and say, where's the money going to come from? Now, that question has never been asked when it came to other groups of people getting their reparations, whether it was because of something America did to them, or whether it was because of something somebody else did to them and America stepped in as if they were really Captain America, but they're really Homelander. America's really Homelander across the world. All the world leaders, I hope that you leave many of us out of your get back, right? Just like America saying they're going to get this country back in blood from immigrants and those people who they bought here without any choice. When you talk about slaves and the descendants of them, and anything of the sort that doesn't look, white, and the way they believe that Americans should look. Just if you look at the halftime show, I mentioned the last episode, won't harp on it, but you know what an all-American looks like, and what kind of music represents all Americans, even though even that music is founded by those people which they would like to exclude from the mindset of all American. And that's a whole nother conversation that can go on and on. But anyway, we want to talk about a familiar objection, right? And I have some notes here. One of the things that people say, like I mentioned, is no one alive today owns slaves. And then the other part of that is no one alive today is a slave or has been a slave. Why should we pay reparations? So that's the follow-up to that. I've never owned slaves. My parents never owned slaves. My parents' never owned slaves. And this whole argument is based on the fact that harm, or the fact that they believe that harm stopped after 1865. First of all, it took all of 1865, even though in the beginning of 1865 is when they abolished slavery, but it took all of 1865 to realize that. So let's start there. Secondly, what do you think was happening between 1865 and 1965? A whole century. What do you think was happening? You think everything was just good? You think everybody was just doing well? Every black person, they got freed and this is the land of milk and honey. No. You got the Jim Crow era. You got fighting for voter rights. You have the Civil Rights Act, which happened in that latter part of that century. So for a century, there was this backlash, this white lash for the freedom of slaves. And we're just in another white lash. The only thing is, and I'm sure then, if we knew and had more accounts, that there were some black folk who was aligning themselves with people who didn't agree with their freedom. I'm sure that we can find that. Right? So, nothing new under the sun. So there's nothing new under the sun. I'm pretty sure, right? And it comes from a place of like Stockholm syndrome. The idea that you fall in love with your oppressor, right? The one who is holding you back. There's nothing new under the sun. So I'm sure it happened then. But slavery was only the first chapter. Oh, and I love this quote. There was a quote I just saw, and I forget who said it. So quote me, right? Hit the quote here. If you know who said it, I want you to say who said it, because I forget. And if I do, maybe I'll attribute it in a tag and see what they say. But the person said, oh, it was the mayor of Baltimore. He said, slavery is not black history. It's white history. We just survived it, right? But in this case and in this conversation, slavery was only the beginning. It was the very beginning. So we got to be real about that. It was the very beginning of what would be traumatic experiences for black folk in this country. Now, I want to push back, right? I want to continue to push back on those notions that I mentioned and tell people ignorance is not an alibi. It's not an alibi. You can't lean on that, right? You can't lean on it in law. You can't lean on it in history. Ignorance doesn't erase your responsibility. It doesn't. If your ancestors did all they could do to dehumanize, to denigrate, to drag down, to disenfranchise a group of people, if your ancestors didn't do anything to come against those things, but come here as immigrants, be classified as a nigga, and then, soon as they're offered whiteness, turn their backs on the very people they started their journey in America with. And then, not only that, join in on the dehumanization, join in on the degradation, join in on just the humiliation and all the traumatic acts, because it was all a play by the original whites to come here to make sure that they didn't lose their numbers. That's all. They're trying to make sure they didn't lose their numbers. Fast forward to January, 2 white folk get killed. One protecting a protester from ICE, the other fleeing away from ICE after trying to warn neighbors about what was going on with them in the community. You could argue this, you could argue that. They tried to, like Justin, great content creator, was just on the Grits and Egg podcast. Shout out to him. Shout out to Grits and Egg podcast. I love the podcast. Part of the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing is to be a part of the conversation, a responsible part of the conversation. But the point is, they controlled the narrative immediately. You didn't know that the FBI refused to be a part of the investigation of Renee, the one who was the one we saw being killed first. Just flat out refused. FBI doesn't usually do that in those cases. They usually get involved and they usually investigate and they usually get to the bottom of if there's some wrongdoing there, because they're propped it up as an agency of the government, which is supposed to work on behalf of the people, is what they tell us. But again, narrative control. It's not about actually doing what you say you're going to do. It's about projecting a narrative to make the people believe that you will do what you say you're going to do. But anyway, I digress from that, right? Responsibility, as far as the narrative control thing, to cap that off really quick, the narrative control of that event. Well, she was driving her car at the agent. Well, we see the wheel was turned away from the direction that the agent was actually in. He shoots through the front windshield, right? Once. The next two shots were through her window, her driver's side window. So you jump on it, you say, well, she's trying to hit. First, they say she was just trying to flat out hit him. It was her. She was the aggressor. She was the problem. He feared for his life. Video comes out. And we're like, Cat Williams, you do know we can see you, right? So then they're like, well, how can we spin this? Well, then they want you to have sympathy for the agent. Well, he was in an incident not too long ago, within the last, I think, 2 years to that, where he was injured due to somebody using a vehicle to harm him. Narrative control. They continue to do it. And it's the same thing when it comes to all of this. Well, it happened to you. And again, like the last episode, I spoke about how we fully understand how legacy works when it comes to positive, like passing money down and things we can reprimand people for not doing, right? Not looking at the reason why they're not doing it, but just reprimand them for not doing it. We understand legacy there, but we don't understand the legacy of trauma, not just within an individual, but within that individual's family, then branch out within that individual's community, branch out, then within that individual's whole group of people and lineage, and how that's passed down, how that becomes. We understand when we look at orcas, right? Different pods, they're able to teach based off of what was passed down to them. We make it like it's this mythical thing, right? The way they talk about it, I see these different documentaries and stuff like that. It's not mythical. It's passed down. It's passed down in customs. And if you have a line of people, which Black people are, who have dealt with having to survive horrific conditions, what are they passing down to the next generation? What is the legacy? Survival. This is why they say things, older people say things like, it don't matter if you know your rights, just get home. Do what you got to do to get home. Even if that is allowing that person, that officer, that whatever, to violate you at all, at anything, just get home and we'll handle it with the law. Well, if you're telling me that the law is violating me and you expect me to believe that coming home to you and then let's sort it out with the law in the legal way is going to work swiftly. That's the real issue, is that it's never swift. It takes a long, long time. And you may not be the one to benefit from that, which is like, so now I get to be dehumanized. I get to be violated. I get to be traumatized. And maybe this won't happen again, but I got to live with. And now I got to fight not to pass this trauma by way of how I interact and the way of how I raise my children onto my children, so that they don't take it to the next generation, even if they don't experience it personally, that they don't have those feelings and those thoughts transferred to them, the legacy of them. But anyway, the thing is this: responsibility does not equal blame. And I think that's where we get hung up at, and that's where we get stuck in the conversation. You hear responsibility as blame. Blame gets deposited as shame. Shame keeps you from acknowledging your responsibility. It's a vicious cycle. So when you're benefiting from systems, even unknowingly, this creates an obligation for you to go back, or not go back, but to stop and say, wait a minute, I'm benefiting from a system of exploitation. I'm benefiting from a system of denial through gaslighting, through controlling the narrative, right? So it goes, when we were slaves, we could be the most valuable property in the sense of how much we could do. I probably would be one of them. I'm a big dude. I could have put a whole bunch of, picked a whole bunch of cotton and, would have been all banged up and everything, but I could carry a bunch of bags. They would have had my quota would have been high, right? When you look at that, we were valued as property. As soon as we were free, fully free, at the end of 1865, and we were able to start kind of branching out, and I believe even people started to get those 40 acres and a mule, right? When that happened, right, what happened? Now all of a sudden the narratives come out. Oh, they're lazy. Oh, they're shiftless. They're this, they're that. They're crooked. They're all those narratives come out. We're making things happen. I'll get into that a little bit later too. We're making things happen. And the truth about all of this is that ignorance doesn't erase your responsibility. Accountability also does not equal accusation, right? I'm not saying that you did it. I'm not saying that you harmed me. I grew up in a very working class, down to poor part of the county I'm from. The highest, there's probably very few above working class, a lot in the working class, and then a good amount of people who are probably considered poor, and I'm saying below the poverty line, right? Maybe just being able to make it, right? I'm not accusing you of having control over the system and being the ones that lord it over us or rule over us or anything like that, and being the ones that whatever. What I'm saying is you do benefit from it. So why not utilize that benefit on behalf of the people who you actually know and who you're around, instead of being so upset when we do things that come together. So if you're talking about DEI, you're talking about affirmative action, things that were trying to balance the scale, but still ended up helping others outside of the Black community more than us, including white women. But affirmative action, DEI, that stuff is not just for Black people. But when you put something together with Black people in mind, it covers so many people, because it does have to do with the diversity aspect of things. So not only is it helping Black folk, it's also helping white folk, Asian folk, Latino folk, right? It's helping so many people with disabilities, people who are poor, who can be of all races, ethnicities, religions. When you think of something and you say, well, I got Black people in mind for this, it's going to by nature cover. It's going to become an umbrella. It's going to become an awning for so many people. So you don't hurt anyone by helping Black folk. You don't hurt anyone by giving reparations, not even giving. We earned it. You don't help anyone by seeking to provide or make available reparations for the work that we've done to build this nation. Yes, we built this nation. It doesn't have to be a diaspora war. It doesn't have to be a war between immigrants versus those who were brought here in slavery. We built this nation. We can both build this nation and be building this nation, which we are, and which immigrants are building this nation. But don't make any mistakes. I heard Godfrey, the comedian, say, it was because of the work that Black people did, from slavery, fighting for our freedom, here, to the Civil Rights Act, making sure we get our rights. See, you can't be free without your rights, your basic human rights intact. And Godfrey said it great. And he comes from immigrant family. He was talking to another man. I forget his name. I think he's the dude that does like the Ninja Warrior stuff. I could be wrong though. But anyway, you come here standing on our shoulders is what I want to say. You come here, and that's okay. It doesn't diminish what you do or what you've been doing, what you've done or what you've been doing, and what you continue to do. You are a vibrant part of this nation. You brought so much more flavor. Some of you come from the West Africa, and that's where we come from. That's our origins. And so you bring that back into our lives, the food, the music, the traditions, right? We thank you for that. I thank you for that personally. I don't know if the rest of the black folk in the country want to say that. I thank you for that because it gives us the opportunity. Now let's work together better. We've been bad to you. We've said some negative things because of the propaganda that they share about us, about Africa and Africans, right? From the different countries all over the continent and what we thought. But now we're in the information era, so we get to see things live and in action. But again, we appreciate you. Now let's work together better. Let's be brothers and sisters and cousins and aunties and uncles and all that stuff. Let's stop one looking down on the other. Both parties have done it for different reasons. The biggest thing I've heard coming from our brothers and sisters on the continent, the motherland, the thing I've heard negative, and I've heard a lot of positive. I've heard a lot of embracement. I've seen a lot of embracement. So I don't want to act like it's all negative. But the thing I did hear is the looking down because we don't know where we come from, as if it was our fault. And as if they haven't even put a crazy paywall up to figure out what tribe you come from. Crazy paywall. Not to mention, if you don't have any kind of sample from both parents, it makes it even more difficult. But yeah, you got to pay a lot of money for that. Is it worth it? Probably yes. Gives you something to kind of go back to get some rooting and maybe have a clearer understanding. Maybe even help you nutritionally. I don't know. There's so many benefits to knowing exactly where you go back to root-wise. But I digress from that. Accountability is a part of adulthood. And many of you understand that the conversation between men and women is all about women not wanting to take accountability. I don't stand on that because the women in my life take accountability, right? They take accountability for themselves and how they show up and how that impacts their families. That's the women that's around me. I just told some young men recently, they were talking about this whole thing and talking about red pill, blue pill stuff. I was in passing and something just told me stop and talk to him. Got to talking. He was like, he got his heart broke. I said, see, that's when y'all spiral. Y'all start fitting, fresh and fit and Andrew Tatum and all that kind of stuff. Get your heart broken and it's all over. Now women are all this and they're all that. When honestly, you attract what you project. That's a word for you. You attract what you project. And if you are around a bunch of people, let's take the women thing out of it. Let's just say if you're around a bunch of people who don't accept accountability, don't respond well to it, chances are you don't either. And if you do, and if that's a value of yours, why are you still around them? One of the things that Kevin Gates said one time was that when people disrespect him, he doesn't need to get out of, he don't need to go back and get out of what his current character is. Because he said that, there's a space in there, but I try to leave that for just certain things. Those things are mentioned in his latest episode with, I think it was Club Shay Shay. Yeah, Shannon. He says, what he was staying on business for. And many stand-up guys would feel the same way. But he just said, I don't have to do nothing to nobody when they disrespect me. Check it. If there's no response to the checking, then at that point, I got to move away from you. Because the only other option, if you ain't going to respect me after I checked you on it, and we could have got it together then, and you still continue to do the same thing, I remove myself from that relationship. Simple as that. But accountability is adulthood. It's adulthood. And you know that. You know it because you try to hold black people accountable all the time for everything. We could be minding our business, no weapon, no drugs, no illegal activity, gunned down by a police officer. Oh, well, he had an attitude. I just wish somebody would have taught him how to interact and be just a decent human being. What reason was there to harm me? There was no reason. There was no reason to harm me. And we're justifying this? We're justifying harming me for what? For what? Because nigga is not just a word. It's how you view. I said you don't view them as much. You don't view them highly. You don't see them as human. So you call them nigger, but you treat them. The worst part of that is you treat them like a nigger. You treat them like that. And that's just the long and short of it. This is a systems thing. And you get in the way. You become part of the smoke and mirrors when you get caught up in the responsibility conversation. Well, I didn't have slaves. Shut up. We don't need to have that conversation because I know you didn't have slaves. And I'm going to take that as you thinking I'm stupid if you think you have to say that to me. So shut up. Shut up and be a part of the solution and not the problem. All right? Be a part of the solution and not the problem. And the thing that we need to realize is that you don't have to cause harm to be responsible for repair. Some men need to hear this too when it comes to their girlfriend, their wives. You may not have been the one that hurt them, but you are the one with them in the moment. So it's up to you to build and maintain trust. Maybe they don't have trust. Maybe they didn't have a great relationship with their dad. Maybe their dad made promises that he didn't keep. Right? We can complain all day long, but they ain't got no dad in their life. But they deserve love too. Just like if you ain't had no dad. A lot of the dudes that complain about women with no dads in their life are the same ones that didn't have dads in their life for whatever reason. Jail, dead, deadbeat, whatever reason. A lot of y'all that talk about that, y'all the same ones. So you should be uniquely crafted to manage being in a relationship with a woman that didn't have a father, because you know what it's like not to have a father. You know what the importance of a father is, right? We always know how important something is when it's missing. We always know. Those of us that have active fathers in our lives may miss some of the importance because we took some of that for granted. But I can assure you, none of my friends who didn't have a father in their life that related with my father took my dad for granted at all. At all. But me, born, he was there. First steps, he was there. Not there to see the first steps. I don't think he was. But what I mean is, I'm going through the lineage of my life. He was there at every point. So it's easy for me to take that for granted. But then when I have friends who come over that didn't have their dad in their life, when I have friends that come over whose dads weren't present, they were there physically but not present, and they come over, my dad's around, or he's the coach, so he's around giving advice well beyond coaching them, right? In high school, in college. Several of y'all. Make sure y'all comment, like, subscribe, share. I am doing this as a result of the way my father raised me. So because you know what it's like not to have a dad, there should be much more grace. There should be empathy, patience, kindness, love. If you know what I'm getting at, you know what I'm doing. You know what I'm listening. You know what I'm listening. But you should have those. Now, let's just talk about, let's substantiate some of the things I've spoken about so far, right? First of all, reparations are not ancient history. And this is not about 1865 or before 1865. It's not about that. That's to get that out the way. This is about everything that followed. Let's talk about a red line. That's drawing a line around communities and then saying, well, black people can't live here. But then in the places that black people can live, the property value is lower because black people live there. And as soon as a black person moves into a white neighborhood, I mentioned it, Fallcroft, first black community, or family to move in the community, they were rioting. They were rioting. A lot of my old heads, whether they were from Philly, like Southwest and West Philly, or whether they were from in the county, like me, because we got generations here in the county too, black folk. One of the places they always say you couldn't stroll through was Darby. Now, if you know the area, you know Darby, you're like, wait a minute. There's a lot of African folk that live there, black folk. There's some Latinos that live in Darby. Still some white folk that, live there, may have been there for generations, never left, couldn't leave, right? You'd be like, what? But if you talk to some people, you couldn't stroll through Darby on some regular, like I'm just strolling through, about to go get something to eat, about to jump on the trolley, about to, just chilling. They were like, once you hit Darby, a lot of the Philly guys that I know, old heads, it's like once you hit Darby, it's like almost like you basically running straight through to get through Darby. That's pretty much it. So, redlining, GI Bill, racial exclusion, serve the country, right? Come back, and you get treated like less than a human. But I thought, see, throughout history, they always promoted the soldier, right? Oh man, the American soldier is the epitome of America, fighting for our rights and our safety and all that kind of stuff, our liberty and justice for all. Uncle Sam wants you, right? Black folk did that. Earn the benefits. And even with the benefits, they found a way to dice it up so that they can be excluded. Highway displacement. Right now, they talk about the blue route. It's been an ongoing discussion for several decades. But Swarthmore, most people in Swarthmore got some money historically. Maybe not now. Things change. Inflation. But historically, Swarthmore is a more affluent area in Delaware County. It's almost a whole nother world. That and most of media. And then you go out to the main line. But on this side, it's media and Swarthmore. Our main line is media and Swarthmore. So you tell me that they can block adding a lane or two to the blue route, which is a highway technically. In essence, it's a highway. And the reason why you would want to add some lanes, and I'm not for or against it, but the reason why I believe you would want to for infrastructure reasons, like this summer is almost like LA's hosting in 2028, LA will be hosting the Olympics. We know that, right? Their highways are all 4 or 5. I mean, I've been out there. It gets hectic out there. They got 4 or 5. They got a bunch of lanes. It gets hectic, but it also can be kind of sweet depending on the part of the day. But it can be hectic because all lanes can be backed up because everybody knows LA traffic if you've been out there. But my point is this. They want to add for infrastructure because where we live at is right by the city. So imagine this summer we're celebrating 250 years of America, which started, 1776, Philadelphia, PA. So it's going to be a big to-do. I'm sure your soiled leader will make his way into the city, and that'll make a bunch of, commotion and gridlock things. But you got 95, which probably definitely needs to be expanded. It's not as big as other major cities' highway and as far as like wide, I should say, the lanes at all areas, right? Like most of 95 should probably be 4 lanes, no less. But it kind of bottlenecks in certain areas and things like that. And, you want to add, and I think they've been working on adding to that. I think a lot of it is 4 lanes, especially as you get out of the city and start going south, or if you're going north and you get out of the city, it kind of opens up right there. But same thing, same difference when you talk about the blue route, because that would be another major route needed in an event that we were to host, say, the Olympics. This summer is a tester, as I was saying, because we got the World Cup games. We got the 250 anniversary of the nation. And then on top of that, we got the MLB World Series, not World Series, All-Star game being played here. So Swarthmore blocks that. Ain't none of that going on. But guess who can't block that? Guess what neighborhoods 95 runs through? It runs through communities in Philly, right over top of it. Right over top of it. And Swarthmore was like, y'all ain't putting that in nobody's backyard. Y'all not getting no more land to put that in nobody's backyard. So it doesn't make sense to expand it just past Swarthmore. Like you might get away with it and just past Swarthmore because maybe they don't have the same agency, but they're able to block that. Black communities can't block stuff like that. Black communities don't have the leverage or the tax base all the time to block things like that. If they do, they probably can because the people in office will represent the people in the community physically, but also just in interest. So you got that predatory lending, student loans, and anything you can think of. All these shops that go around in these low-income, predominantly Black communities, and they say not shops, dealerships, and they say everybody's approved. They mean that. Now, what your interest rate is and what your monthly payment is, that's another conversation in and of itself. But you're gonna walk out of here with a car today. You might be paying over $1,000 a month, but you're gonna walk out here with a car, and we like that, especially when it's around tax time. But they'll give you the predatory lending, right? Just because you don't have the information. Again, in this case, ignorance is not a cop-out. You can't go back and say, well, I didn't realize that this was a bad deal and that I should have took a few months to clean my credit up before I went for this car. I didn't realize that nobody was going to let me refi because somebody told me, well, just take the deal now and then you can refi. That sounds good. But what does the refi look like? If the refi is just going to lower the monthly payment by extending the terms based on what you've paid down already, that may not be the best for you because it just lengthens the amount of time. And then is that house as valuable as they saying it is for the refi, which could be another predatory thing, is like, hey, yeah, you got 50,000 of equity. Won't you refi, get the equity out of it? You do that. Then when it's time to sell the house in a few years, because maybe you outgrow it or maybe you want to downsize, now you either break it even or upside down. That's another conversation. The predatory loan, policing disparities. There's a stat that talks about the sentencing, or the arrest. Let's talk the arrest and the sentencing, because that's the policing and sentencing disparities are the next two things in my notes. But there's this thing where they talk about people with the same drug, same amount of that drug, same number on the offense line, 1, 2, or 3. If it's 1, let's just say 1. Both parties had 1. Black people were being sentenced to far more than white people with the same drug. You look at the 80s with crack and then cocaine. They treated it like it was two different things. That's because the wealthy elite, that's their thing, cocaine. So they see it as like a party delicacy, almost like a bottle of bourbon or some wine or something. They don't see nothing wrong with it. But they demonize crack, right? Demonize crack. Even though it's the same drug, just two different ways, they demonize crack. And because crack was in predominantly Black communities and the dealers were predominantly Black, they were able to demonize it across the board. Just like now the opioid epidemic, it's a public health issue. They didn't treat crack like a public health issue. They got safe inject sites, Narcan. This is not me saying they shouldn't. This is just me saying, look at the difference at how they treat it. They treat crack addicts like criminals. They treat opioid addicts like patients. There's a difference. School inequality. We see it in the Philadelphia School District, shutting down over 20 schools. Then you see it might be attached to developers who wanted those properties to develop and to make money. For-profit developers for themselves. They were upset. So then the plan was shut down these schools. Then these schools are shut down. Oh, they're not safe for the students. We're going to shut them down. Then what's the district going to say? Well, instead of just having them sit there, we'll just sell them to these people, probably developers, through the knowledge. And it's crazy because they already say schools are overcrowded and they're closing 20 buildings. Correct me if I'm wrong about that too. I'm not above correction, but I believe I read 20 buildings. Could be more, could be less. Correct me on that. But school inequality, you don't hear that. There's no way. Westchester has 3 high schools. 3. And I assure you, there's a reason why they have 3. It's probably attached to the population and how many students there are. They're probably able to control classroom size better with having 3 high schools. I assure you, the community members would be in uproar if Westchester said, we're shutting one of the high schools down. I assure you. And if it was just because, oh, it's not in good condition, they'd be like, what? And then don't let them find out there's a developer that wants to put up a luxury apartment complex. So Westchester's trying to sell out, right? Hear me. If you hear this part and don't hear what I just said before, rewind about 30 seconds into this, because you'll be thinking I'm saying that that's reported. It's not. What I'm saying is, if that happened, I'm using the area and I'm saying, if that happened, there would be a lot of people standing up to say that's not going down, because we need 3 high schools. So you're not getting rid of one. You got a district, Philadelphia, shutting down 20, potentially 20 buildings. We're already overcrowded. Now, what happens with those students that go to those different schools is they got to go somewhere else. So now you're overcrowding somewhere. You're making somebody's commute to school longer. We were saying that y'all weren't doing well. So how is the answer to shut down school buildings, to overpopulate other schools, the remaining schools that aren't shut down? How is that the answer if we're telling you you're not doing a good job? I just don't understand it. Maybe it's not meant to be understood. Maybe it's meant to be pushed back on. But anyway, environmental racism with these data centers for AI. These data centers going up all over the place. People are pushing back. Certain communities that have the leverage, the tax base to push back, are getting the job done. But those data centers are still going up. Where are they going up at? They're either going up in places that don't have as many people or don't have as many homeowners that are paying property taxes that can really, really, really push back and really say, that's not going down here. We understand what it does to the environment. We understand what it will do to us, our health, our quality of life, to our children. Now, how would you get to put this in the hood, in a predominantly Black community, when you have people who don't have time to pay attention to what councils are doing to push back and say that's not going down, figure something else out, because this is consuming a great amount of water and it makes that water unusable. So it becomes waste. But my point is, when you have a community that is so strapped for cash and resources that they're focused on getting cash and resources, you can do these things without any pushback. Because how many people are going to people are not just not showing up to council meetings because they just lazy and they don't want to be there. We live in life. We got to work. We got to work. This is why things need to be recorded and posted. I know in most places it's law that it happens, but in some places people get away with it again because there's nobody checking it. Nobody cares. If they're in the know, they're in the know. And they do this whole meritocracy thing, like, if you just did your work, then you would know what was going on. If you showed up, then you would know. I got to work. Why don't you do it live? We got so many platforms. I'm using a platform now, Riverside. You can go live on that. Go live. If it's on the up and up, go live. If it's on the up and up, make sure all of the recordings are accessible. easily accessible by anybody from any platform, whether it's on a phone, a computer, wherever. But healthcare inequality, going through it now. Going through it now. In a more affluent area, right? So often it's a little further from me. So they might go to mainline and Riddle. And if they ain't that sick, they probably go to the mainline. Or they might go in the city, right? You shut down a whole hospital system because you didn't take heed in 2016. And in 2016, Republicans were running the council. I'm going to make that clear again. I had this hoodie on when I did the video about how long Republicans ran Delaware County. So all the nonsense I see on Citizens for Delco, whatever, all that dumb stuff, this is what happens when you hire a Democrat, a libtard. This is what happens. This is what you look like. This is what happens. What does that look like? But that's what y'all look like and sound like. This is what happens when you hire a libtard to run this, right? That's what y'all sound like. Because you don't do the due diligence to say for 150 years, Republicans ran this county into the ground. Nobody wants to take accountability because they see it as blame. No, accountability opens up the possibility. See it that way. Accountability opens up your possibilities. For growth. For making the future better than the past. For making your present better than your past. You have to take accountability. Healthcare inequalities, though. Crozier system shuts down. Who got their palms greased? Who got their palms greased? You were warned by 2 different counties in 2 different states not to let them do it. Somebody got their palms greased. That's what happened. Whether it was in the sale of it or whether it was in the adjudication of it, somebody got their palms greased. And guess what? We got screwed because that judge in Texas who don't care nothing about what's going on in Delaware County, but everything about their connection to Prospect Medical Holdings, probably, or just the optics of it for anybody else, that she's friendly with for-profit entities, upheld the bankruptcy and said the county has no right to take those buildings back in eminent domain, that they get to sell off their properties. And guess what they did? They sold a huge medical or hospital in Upper Darby for $600,000. Now, mind you, it's going to the Upper Darby School District. But that building is worth way more than $600,000. In fact, that was the issue. The pushback was like, wait, you're killing the tax on that. Now it's at $600,000, but the evaluation of that property is definitely in the millions. So pennies on the dollar, which is beneficial to the school district. So it's a catch-22. Like, do you complain? Or do we say, well, that's good because they definitely need another building. Now the hope is now we need donors to help them build that building, renovate that building, or if they're going to tear it down and build something different in that space, however they're going to handle it, we need donors because they talking about it's going to take years before that building is ready to go. Last I saw and read. But anyway, voter suppression is real. It's very real. They did it to our ancestors pre-civil rights. They're doing it again with this whole passport involvement. It's crazy work. It's crazy work. Just because something is simple doesn't mean that it's bad. Just because it's simple to vote doesn't mean that it's bad. Usually you vote in your local, in your community, and people know you. I haven't had to really show an ID. My signature speaks for itself because you got to sign in that book. You sign, you keep signing every time you sign it. That signature got to look the same. There are other ways. There wasn't really fraud happening. But guess what they benefit from? I just saw the video. It was like they benefit from low turnout to the polls. So they don't care that this is going to affect a lot of their constituents. They don't care. They know that if the turnout is low, it's more likely to go in their favor. That's all they care about. If the turnout is high, then it's more likely to go in the Democrat favor. Now, I'm not for either party. And that's why I like what Wes Moore said, that he doesn't answer to the party. He answers to the people. He answers to the people, point blank, period. And that's the new wave. That's what has to happen. So to the Republican MAGA folk out there, we ain't bootlicking Democrats, especially not these old Democrats that's really center, moderate, and leaning to the right, that want to do reforms, right, that are afraid of defunding things. We ain't bootlicking them dudes and them women. That's the old guard. Those are the people that are icing out the people who we believe to be more revolutionary. They're icing out the people who we believe that really want to make a change, that really want to fight for the people. They're icing out this newer generation. So I love it that Wes Moore said that. Governor of Maryland. I love it. He said, I answer to the people of Maryland who put me in this seat. I don't answer to some party handlers, because that's all they are. And most of them people, they're either in the Epstein files or they're adjacent, because they're just the other side of the coin to the MAGA Republicans. They really are. This is why they keep calling us this bipartisan stuff. No, we're past that. We're past that. If you're sympathizing with pedophiles and you're working with people who are fraudsters and will sit up in your face while they benefit and grow their wealth, just like you complained about Biden, just like you complained about Obama, the things you couldn't stand for, and now you're sympathizing with pedophiles. My, how the tables have turned, you sickos. But anyway, voter suppression, and it's a real thing. See, this is where episodes 2, white apathy meets material consequences. Right? This is where, like, I'm pretty sure there were some white people doing all the things that I just mentioned in history. And currently, a lot of these things are still going on. Just don't get called out because who we got in office. The narrative gets spun. Like I told you, narrative control, narrative warfare gets spun in a different way. These things, I'm sure there were people who were like, I don't mind if they have their own. I just don't want them in my community. But yet they were allowing all these things to happen at the same time. They weren't speaking against them, saying, like, give them an opportunity. Just let them be free. Just let them go. Just let them do their thing. Let black folk do their thing, right? They ain't do that. They was like, well, that's what they got to fight through. That's what they got to get through. That's what they have to survive. You know what I mean? But these weren't accidents. These were policies. This was intentional. This isn't the boogeyman. Like, I want you to understand that. I'm not making this stuff up. This was intentional. This was through policy. All the things I listed, if you want to go back and look at it. Policy. This is how they did it. It wasn't about just, oh, well, we don't like you because you're black, or we won't serve you at our business, private business, because you're black. It was legit policies that went in place under different administrations that tremendously set us back, if slavery wasn't enough. But we're not talking about slavery and the mindset that people, especially white folk, think that the only reason why we talk reparations is because of everything that happened before 1865. We talking about 1865 to 2026. 2026. Legacy matters. So we got to move from that conversation of responsibility of all those things. I told you I was going to give you some receipts, right? We got to move from that idea of who's responsible for those things specifically to who's responsible for the repair, the material repair. So first you got to start with repentance. Repentance is a 180 turn away from a mindset, a 180 turn away from behavior, a 180 turn away from ideologies, from supporting people who are nefarious and degenerate. I love that word. I told y'all that. Then you got to have acknowledgement that these things actually happen and these things actually hurt whole groups of people, particularly right now. I'm talking about black folk, right? Then you got to move to reconciliation. That's when you say, I acknowledge that this happened, right? I want to work with you to get out of your way. How can I get out of your way? How can we just open this up so that there's just a fair shot at everything now? And what can we do to bring you into now, right? As far as like being whole from a material standpoint, what can we do to help that? I'm willing to do it and I'm willing to listen. You gotta be willing to listen. Because the other problem is those who say that they're willing to help always want to have the right idea because they want to be Captain America. We don't need Captain America. We already got Black Panther. We already got the Jabari tribe led by M'Baku. We already got Shuri. We got that in our community. We don't need that. We need you out of our way. We need the obstacle out of. And when I say out of our way, it doesn't mean that we don't want to have a connection or a relationship with you. We're saying stop impeding upon our progress, right? Stop impeding upon our progress. That's it. If you can do that, then we can relate with one another because we work. You see, we built this nation. We work. We do this. We just want to benefit from the work that we do and not worry about, oh, is it going to be burned down? Are we going to be accused of something we didn't do so they can take everything we did do away from us? Right? That's it. It requires honesty. It requires proximity. The other thing is, I know you're going to say, well, you said get out of your way, so why would we want to be in proximity to you? Get out of my way was all about the obstacles to success or to building, to progress or whatever. That's the get out of my way part, right? Stop impeding upon us. Stop setting up obstacles. Proximity is relate with us as human beings. We're one of the most forgiving, if not the most forgiving groups of people ever. This whole idea, this whole fear, like Cat Williams, I think, said it in one of his stand-ups about the fear of us doing to them what they did to us. We ain't even thinking about that. Anytime we fought physically, and anytime we've been violent in our revolt, has been necessary for the revolt. We don't typically operate in a violent manner unless we have to fight our way out of something. So take away conditions that cause us to have to fight our way out of something. Simple as that. Then we move into reparations and material repair because the harm was material. If the harm kept materials away from us, resources, cash, the ability to pass that on and build that generation after generation after generation, right? What this nation did, I should say, because we want to keep it focused on the system because we get caught up in the individual thing. We get too caught up in the individual responsibility and we forget that this is about the system. What this system did, right? The overall system and the micro systems within it, what it did was the opposite of what it did for those who were able to build wealth. Look at the wealth gap. Just go look up the wealth gap. I ain't getting into the statistics. There's no way to reconcile if you won't repair it. I can't be unwhole. I can't be broken. You together, and you just say, sorry. Sorry about that. I'm really sorry you went through that, right? Sound like the boy from, I'm really sorry. Sorry you went through that, guys. I really hope you guys can make it back. Well, we can. Make us whole. Make us whole. You owe somebody something, you pay it back. You owe us. You owe us. That's my thought. You owe us. And I'm talking about this nation. And then those of you who feel like, well, my family didn't do this. My family was poor and they got it from nothing. Just get out the way. You got it. We work just as hard, if not harder. And many of us don't got it. Right? Now let's move into the blueprint for reparations. and talk about what it actually look like. We can talk about first education and capacity building. So of course you need financial literacy. See, there's work that even in reparations, there's work that we have to do. So black folk, don't think I'm just up here, because some of y'all black folk, man, y'all so twisted in the head. Victim mentality stuff. Y'all love talking about that. That was given to you by a white person. To me, that whole line is built off of a psyop of just not being in alignment with your people. But don't get me wrong. I'm not saying just give reparations and we ain't got no work to do. Like, oh, just give us our 40 acres and a mule with no preparation for it. Right? So we got financial literacy. That's work. Got to be willing to learn. We have several people. I know several people. Shout out to my brother Chris Brown. Shout out to my brother Dave Brown. Not related by the blood of Jesus, but not related biologically. Them two brothers in the finance industry. We got people. We got people. My brother Justin. Finance industry. We got people. My god brother, Justin McFadden. Shout out. State champion, PA. You know, we got people in the finance industry. We have people in different industries, but specifically with finances that can teach. They can teach financial literacy. So we understand not only how to make money, how to save money, how to invest money, how to utilize money in a right way so that it can make money, so your money can make money in other ways outside of investment. How to build up other people. Home ownership preparation. A lot of us bought homes. Millennials might have been the first in our family to buy a home. Maybe not. I wasn't, but maybe not. And that's fine too. But either way, owning a home today is different than owning a home in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. Totally different, especially if you're just about to buy a home. Everything look different. The cost of the houses is different. The market is different. The interest rates are different. Right? We need prep from knowledgeable people in the realm. Sam Simmons is the one who got us our house. She from Delco. I was adamant to use a black person and a person, and made it better, a person from Delco like me. You don't understand when you're doing something as big as buying a house, and this is for me. I don't know if my wife felt this way, but having somebody with a familiar voice and using words that are regional, not even regional, that are local to you, more local, because we're literally from a town away from each other, me and Sam. Or I don't know if she's going by Samantha. I'm sorry saying Samantha, if it's Samantha or Sam, but I always knew you and Sam went to high school together and everything like that. But being able to hear certain words from her that are very specific to Delco and maybe South Philly during the process of buying a house, it made buying a house feel like it wasn't that complex, because it's like, wait, this is somebody who, like, I understand, like, I know her from high school. I'm familiar with how she's speaking, very familiar. So I don't know if you ever have that experience when you go to like down south, or if you go overseas to vacation and you're talking to people from other places, how much you have to kind of like focus on what they're saying in their mouth. I didn't have to do that with Sam. I understood everything. Made the house buying process so much easier. We got people. We ready to do it. Give us the money, the material, whatever, the resources. We'll take it from here because we got people in these industries that can help us. Credit repair, another thing. Same thing. We got people doing that. Entrepreneurship training. We got people doing it. Civic education. What is your duty civically? If you don't know that, how can you ever fulfill that? We got people. We got people to help you with that. What is your duty in your community? Right? And the moment we can all be free in all these areas, right? The moment we can be free, the more work we can do in our community. That's just flat out. That's just flat out. Then we got to look at direct payments, right? That's the next point. Point B, if you will. The first was A. Direct payments, cash, bonds, debt cancellation are three things that pop out to me. Three things I wrote down. You can give cash, you can give bonds, debt cancellation. I would say all three. Because it creates a holistic approach to the repair. So I would say all three. But yeah, I would say give all three. Cash is important, gives us the ability to work now. Bonds is kind of like that set aside. All right, you got that cash. We want to see, we want to let you have the autonomy to work with that, but we also want to put this stuff aside. Kind of like what Reebok did with Iverson. You know what I'm saying? Like he'll get that money, that infuse, I think it's like 30-something mil, 34 mil when he hits like 55. That's crazy. It changes your whole perspective of life if you know you got money sitting there. I wouldn't necessarily say put it at 55, but maybe it is a retirement bond. But your whole perspective changes. Like I've been around wealthy people when they don't worry about the little like bills each month and stuff like that. That's not a concern for them because they know they got that. They don't worry about what's going to happen post 60 after they, may retire if they're working. Or just like, hey, when things slow down and I'm not actively involved in the family business anymore. They don't worry about that because that's there. They don't have to worry about that. This is why when you talk about risk taking, they're not really risk taking. Like a lot of these venture capitalists like to say, got to take good risk and stuff. It's like, is it really a risk if you come from money and you got money sitting there waiting for you for any emergency or just at any point? If things don't work out, you just got it. Is it really a risk? I mean, maybe with what you have there. But if you're good, regardless if you grow what you have or don't or lose it, that's not really a risk at all. Come on. But anyway, then you got debt cancellation. That's huge, especially for me with student loan debt. I don't think any black person should have to pay for college, no matter where they go. State school, private school, Ivy League school, they shouldn't have to pay for college. Any kind of vocational training either, like trades and stuff like that, we shouldn't have to pay for anything because that was all built on the back of slave labor. If we be honest about it, that was all built on the back of slave labor. So debt cancellation would be great. Cancel my student loans. Please cancel my student loans. Land and housing. So you got down payment support. These things kind of happen. And so somebody would say, well, that already happens. But it has to be specific. It has to be like, yo, if you're black, American, not African in America, but black American, descendant of slaves, right? Citizen of this nation, descendants of slaves, you'll get tremendous down payment support that you don't have to pay back. Because we're canceling your debt, so we can't give you more debt. So you get down payment support that you don't have to pay back. The other thing is anti-displacement protections, gentrification. Can't gentrify my neighborhood, right? And we have to take back our narrative. You ain't got to get out the hood. How about we add the neighbor to the hood instead of trying to get out the hood, right? Just add the neighbor to it and call it a neighborhood and change the mindset. Because all of that, poverty is a mindset, being ghetto is a mindset. So let's just add neighbor back to hood and make it a community that we want to stay in, even if you got 3 degrees, make $250,000 or more a year. You should want to stay in a community. You should be able to stay in the community that you come from because it should be viable. There should be community programs for youth, for those in the middle, like the adults of the community, for the babies, of course, and for the seniors. There should be a viable scene, a culture in the neighborhood you come from to the point where you don't need to move. I'm going to just stay here. If I want to make my house bigger, I make my house bigger. Or if I want to move to a bigger house in the same area, I move to the bigger house, and then whoever's at the status that I was at or stature that I was at, they can take my house. So I'll sell them my house for reasonable We'll make sure them rates is reasonable. Matter of fact, didn't even have to. But we'll make sure the rates is reasonable if need be. And we'll go from there. So no displacement no displacement. No displacement, no gentrification. Everybody should be able to stay in their community. And if you want to move to another community, you can. I'm not saying you got to stay stuck. So don't get me wrong. You're not stuck, but that's just me. So business development. So grants, of course, getting the contracts and access to capital, just like they do. Circulating that capital, changing the mindset. Instead of going to the casino, just talking to my barber about that. Instead of going to the casino, messing up 10K, 20K, 30K, give it to somebody that wants to start a business that has a real business plan. Now, hear what I said. That's a part of the education piece. Health and environment, community clinics, maternity health programs. We know in the Black community, the mortality rate through the roof compared to other communities. Environmental remediation. Those are things that we need to be doing in our communities. Try to get through these things. Education system. College should be free. CU endowment repair should happen. And then school funding equity at the K to 12 level. College shouldn't cost us anything. And if you want to just say just state schools can be like that, cool. And community colleges in partnership with state schools, they can be free, fine. If you want to do that, and then people can make a decision if they want to pay money to go to Ivy League schools and things like that. If you want to do that, then fine. I just think it should be free. I think it should be free. That's just me, though. Legal and civic restoration. We need expungements, right? Take the paywall out of expungements. Get that done. You need legal clinics so people know their rights. They know the law, what they can and can't do. A lot of brothers need to know how to navigate child support court, family court, and all that. They need to learn how to navigate those things. And voter access. And then intergenerational wealth preservation, estate planning, insurance literacy, how insurance, life insurance particularly, can benefit, and home insurance can benefit your family. And trust formation. Trust is how people keep their money intact. All these things are estate planning, insurance literacy, insurance or trust formation. That's how they keep their money intact. So yeah, don't give us all that and just say, go ahead, right? As Black folk, it's a twofold thing. We have to do the work. We got to do our due diligence. We have to say, we're going to educate ourselves, and then you're going to make this right by giving us what we earned. Now, what's my ask in all of this? Obviously, what I just said, responsibility across communities. Different roles, but a shared obligation. What did I just say? Black folk, our role is to prepare ourselves for reparations and to have a real plan and to be unified in that plan, right? And to do and be prepared to do what it is that we say we're going to do. What is the system and our white counterparts' roles? Take the obstacles down. Acknowledge, be accountable, take responsibility, and tear all the obstacles down. So in order to take that step, you got to learn your lineage. And then in that education of lineage, you need to be ready to invest in repair. You need to be willing to influence institutions and practice social courage. Vote for material change. Lip service ain't gonna work, right? All lip service does is help us survive another term. That's it. That's it. That's all it's for. We need material change. One of my biggest critiques of Obama is I don't believe he did enough in the material change department for the black community. He was cool, suave. He did a lot of things that were kind of a umbrella blanket resolution kind of thing. But regarding the black community, I don't think he did enough material change. Go back and this is for my black listeners. Document your lineage. Prepare to receive. I already said it. I'm kind of reiterating here. Advocate for transparent administration. You have to be locked in your township or borough, in your ward. You have to be locked in. At the state level, you got to be locked in. At the federal level, we got to be locked in, black folk. This ain't the time. I don't do politics. This ain't the time for that, because politics will do you. I'm telling you, and we seeing it. I don't do politics all you want, but politics will do you. I promise you it will, and it is. Now, in closing, I want to go into being the guy at the door and really in the room to a storyteller of all of this. I sat at the door and I heard everything. Now I'm telling it, not to expose people, but to expose systems and cultures. Access taught me the codes, so I know how to move. I know how to shake. I know all of that stuff. See, I had to read it a little bit because I wrote that down, but I know how to do it. I know how to maneuver. I know the game. I'm the type of dude that could be like, I don't really bang with black folk. I'm that type of guy that has that training that I could do that. That I could be like, yeah, I don't really bang with black folk. I just want to get out of here. I'm going to just go live over here, and I'm educated. My wife educated, and, you know, I could be that kind of dude, but I love my people. I love my people. And I don't see value in being, in chasing proximity to pseudo power, as my one episode is titled. I don't see value in that because I don't see power in them. I see power in my people. Because like it was said, slavery was white history. We just survived it. That's real rap. That's real rap. We survived it. In many cases, we thrived in it. And they had to resort to great violence to tear it down. Truth taught me the cost. So if access taught me the codes, truth taught me the cost. Repair shows us the way forward. You're not going to be able to hide from what has been done, what is being done, and what will come. You can't hide. You can't bury your head in the sand like an ostrich. Because no matter if you bury your head in the sand or whether you face it straight on, it is what it is. But the best way to really handle this, right? They say honesty is the best policy. Truth has to prevail, and it will prevail. So what side of that will you be on is the question. That's the question. What side of that will you be on? Are you going to prevail with truth or fail with the lie? So you have a lot to think about. I appreciate you for bearing with me on this journey for the last 3 episodes. This is the ending of this particular topic. Obviously, I had a lot to share. You all, anybody who tunes in, I appreciate it. Again, I'm on Spotify. I'm on Apple Music. I'm also going to be uploading this episode to YouTube. I might do that first. I got to see how I want to do that and schedule, but I won't go too much into that. So I'll leave you with this. Show up. Be with the truth. Walk in truth. And walk in repair. Have a great one, beloved.
Lately I've been reminiscing, contemplating on how time played tricks on reality. Needed pros vision. You was the apple of my eye till I finger pinched it. It never hurt to zoom out and see the bigger picture. What happens when you love your niggas? But the growing pangs of growing up got us all growing different. Always to my own admission. Most times I'm somewhere between delusion and healthy living. You showed your true colors, I still gave forgiveness. But if I showed mine, I get killed by the witness. Thought the glass was half full till you started spilling. Conversations ice cold since I started chilling. The fall off is necessary. The hurt made me legendary. Now these songs be sanctuary. To the lovers and friends, the ones who loved and lost and loved and lost and flipped it off, now they back loving again. At least until vision is clear.